I had the great pleasure of being invited to Logically's second event, LogicOn, in Columbus, Ohio, the week of the 15th of October, 2024. Logically is a managed service provider, but a very large one. I've also had the great pleasure of being acquired. I was the first MSP to be acquired by Logically. So I feel like I'm really part of the community still, or part of the family still. But I went on site, they had a great event. I set up the podcast booth. I had a lot of great conversations with the staff of Logically, with some vendors that were there, and some other people. It was a great time. I'm humbled and thankful that I got the opportunity to do that. The following is one of the conversations at this great event. I want to thank Logically for letting me do this. I had a great time. Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. I found myself at 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. I took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People ask me, how'd you do it? What's the secret? I need to lose weight. How'd you do it? How did I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others.
Nice to meet you, Ed. I appreciate your time today. What do you hunt?
What do I hunt? Well, anything that's out there. No. I typically birds, pheasant, duck, things of that nature.
In Rochester.
From regions outside. They
Right,
don't allow
right,
that
not
in the city.
Yeah, they get really
not in the
picky
city.
about
No,
that.
no. I think
Yeah.
I'd end up in the Huskell pretty quick there.
Yeah, well, I used to hunt pheasants with my father. It was really fun.
Okay. Yeah.
It's been a long time.
I've got a good birding dog. She's a good girl.
Ah.
So she's good. She's a good pointer. She's also a good retriever. So
Really?
it's really rare to get a combination where they know how to do both.
So explain to me. You're in the woods and she sees a fowl and how does she point?
Well, it depends on what you're after.
Okay.
So typically, with a pheasant, or a grouse or something like that, they're in the brush.
Right.
So
They're flightless, right?
what she'll do is she'll come up and they point. They lift
With their
up
nose.
their front paw, and then they
Oh,
put it in. And she's really pretty when she does it, but she knows to stop because
She's gonna get in the way.
And then I'll say okay, and then she'll go in, and
To pull them
the
up.
birds will come up, and boom, then you get.
Wow.
So she's really good at that, and she's not afraid of the shotgun. That's the thing, I mean, if they're not afraid, then that's fine.
Right.
The other is when you do your duck hunting, she'll swim. She'll go out, because you shoot them, and then they have to go out.
Right. That's in the
So
water.
she's good, and it's very rare to find a dog that'll do both well.
Wow. And do you blow the duck whistle?
Oh yeah, we do the whole thing. I
Yeah.
mean, she's really good. Really good.
Hmm.
So,
And you prepare them? You cook them? You defeather?
yeah, I mean, we're going to get into the details of that, but I mean, anyone that's done it's a series of plucking,
Right.
And, beyond that, it kind of gets into a little bit of a gory
Sure,
story.
sure.
But yeah, it's not too hard. Not as hard as a lot of people would think. As
Right.
a matter of fact, fowl was probably the easiest thing to prep, really, when you
Mm.
look at it, because you can do that very quick. I mean, I compare it in a lot of ways to fishing.
Mm.
It's a very easy animal to take. To dress, I guess, is a proper term.
Hmm. Something about eating what you kill, though.
Yeah, there was something of that.
Yeah.
Plus, you don't spend it in the grocery store.
Right.
But there is something to that. Yeah. A lot of people don't like it because it's gamey. But I think if you prep it right and prepare it right, it can be good. There's nothing better than an oven roasted duck.
Really?
Yeah.
Not too fatty.
Not too fatty. No, not too bad. It's not like a chicken, not like a turkey. They tend to be a little bit greasier, so you have to be prepared for that. But yeah, beyond that, it's very tasty, very nice.
So we're here in Columbus, Ohio, Logically's second big event, LogicOn, in early October. What are some of your goals here?
Well, I was invited here to talk about a particular technology that Extreme has created, and I'm actually one of the creators of it.
Wow.
So yeah, we created this protocol architecture. Going back now, we started work on it around the turn of the millennium. So going back to 2001, 2002. And it's a protocol that's known as shortest path bridging. And we've taken this protocol and made it the core architecture to the Extreme Fabric. And the Extreme Fabric is basically what provides the core for the platform one of Extreme Networks. It's the underlying core to everything we do, in essence, from that perspective. And the unique part about it is it's a completely Ethernet fabric. It doesn't use IP, doesn't use IP routing to establish the topology or the service delivery. So it has a lot of benefits from an operational expenditure perspective because it's easier to manage, easier to deploy, much easier to troubleshoot because you don't have the multiple protocols that you're dealing with. But then also, more importantly, because it doesn't use IP, it's innately secure because IP is a source of vulnerability. So an Ethernet fabric is the ideal mix. The problem has been that there's been no standard implementation of that fabric technology, and that's one of the things that we've changed, not only within the IEEE as far as the standard, and that's 802.1AQ, now grandfathered into the 802.1Q standard, but more importantly, a vendor implementation that people can purchase and deploy. And that's what Extreme Networks does. So this fabric technology that you can deploy, which is equivalent in many ways to what you do with multiple protocol label switching, that MPLS type architecture is very expensive and typically very high OpEx. Well, we can deliver all of the benefits of that type of architecture with the Ethernet fabric at the cost point of a normal Ethernet switch.
Wow.
That's a powerful differentiator for the fabric. And it allows a networking team to come to the table now almost on a peer-to-peer basis with security architecture teams now, because now they're delivering a secure provisioned architecture which can marry well with the security technologies and whatever security demarcation points they may have in the network. So people find it easier to meet compliance, and we all know the compliance is changing almost on an annual basis now. PCI is a great example.
Yeah.
I mean, if you remember PCI, we have PCI 1.0, then 2.0, and quite a while went. Now we're seeing modifications almost annually to these standards. The reason why is because the security landscape is changing.
Sure is.
And I think one of the best things that you can do is make an investment into your network that becomes part of your security posture rather than part of your vulnerabilities. You see, that's the difference. That's the difference. When you incorporate an IP network and you're using IP routing, it works. Nobody's going to deny that. The internet's based on it. But the point of the matter is it does create an area of vulnerability in the fact that it can be enumerated, can be identified, and if you do have vulnerabilities in the network, they will be discovered. By creating a fabric architecture, which basically, fancy word, but obfuscates the core so that it can't be seen, can't be enumerated, well, now you've got a very powerful factor that marries well with security posture.
So dumb it down for me a little bit, Ed. When you say you've created a protocol since 2021, what are you talking about? A network protocol?
When you look at it, you've got a lot of different ways that you can handle networking. Okay, but really
connecting computers.
Yeah, that's what it is at the end of the day. It's taking, I've got a computer at point A, I've got a computer at point B, and I want to connect a path across the network to connect those two. That's really what it is all about.
Essential.
So you got a lot of ways to do it, In the past, we had multiple protocol architectures. You had Novell, you had Bang and Bind, you had AppleTalk.
Yeah.
The industry gradually coalesced to IP.
There's TCP/IP.
Yeah, TCP/IP became the universal.
I remember it was a big discussion in Microsoft about that. They had their own, I forget what it was called.
Absolutely.
And they said no.
And you had OSI,
Yes.
you had DECnet Phase 5, you had all of these different types of protocol architecture. TCP actually won out.
Right.
I mean, just by market barons. And by the way, that's what really determines things, is market barons. The problem with IP, though, is that it never had any thought to security. Never. Security was an afterthought. You know, if you look at the original texts of IP, Douglas Comer's books,
Yes.
they're all about connectivity.
Right.
There was no thought of malware. There was no thought of
bad actors.
I mean, really, we didn't have bad actors enter until really we had the World Wide Web. That's really when you started to see, and I'm not blaming the World Wide Web, but it's what brought the technology to the common populace, and that's really where you started to see quote unquote bad actors. At that point in time, there were several retrofits that happened to IP to help fix that, you know, encryption, things of that nature, all of which came along. And by the way, they're very laudable and you should do them all.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it became apparent that we needed to have some other way to approach security within the network itself. You know, a lot of people will tell you segment the network. And a lot of people that have an IP routed network says, well, that's easier said than done.
Right.
And it's true. It is very difficult. You know, a study from Gartner basically said that 60% of the enterprises that start down the road of microsegmentation give it up.
Wow.
Because it's too onerous from an OpEx perspective.
So when you say segment, you mean divide the network into smaller networks.
Correct. And you can do that. A lot of people say, well, you can do that with VLANs. VLANs aren't proper.
VLANs. Virtual local area networks.
And you can traverse VLANs in an IP routed network. I have malware that can do that easily. And that's actually fairly low rung. So the reality of it is that if you're going to segment, you really have to virtualize. And there's only a few ways you can virtualize, you know, and that's multi-protocol label switching. That's one method. We hear about IP fabrics. That's another method where you're using different tunneling methods over the IP topology. VXLAN is what we often hear about. And then there's what we do, which is say, let's not do IP at all. Let's actually route at the Ethernet level.
So you created a similar protocol to TCP/IP that's at the Ethernet level.
No, totally different.
It still rides on it?
It works. It works on when you look at IP routing is monolithic in the sense that the control plane is the same thing as the data plane.
I see.
Okay, so when an IP router talks, it uses IP to relay the route tables, and then it also uses IP to route your data. Okay, that needs to be separated. That's really what fabrics do, is they separate the data plane from the control and signaling.
Interesting.
Yes, that's a big theory of fabrics. Now, MPLS accomplishes that. IP fabrics accomplish that. Ethernet, as far as shortest path bridging, accomplishes that as well. So it all depends on where you create the demarcation for the data plane. The only difference, and I say only because I'm kind of trivializing it, is we don't use IP in order to establish the topology.
Wow.
So we use the control plane to coordinate the topology, and everything happens in Ethernet. That makes a black hole. You can't see it. You can't enumerate it. So let me give you a scenario, and this is going to kind of stretch your imagination here. If I were to build a fabric, and I were to have that fabric reach from here in Columbus, Ohio, to Tokyo, Japan, and I created a layer 2 service instance in that fabric architecture, you could be in Tokyo and I could be in Ohio, and we'll be in the same IP subnet. That stretches the imagination.
Wow.
Okay, that is what the fabric empowers.
Because generally we'd have to have a many subnets to get all the way across.
Absolutely. You'd hop by hop route in
Right.
most topologies. So that's the difference of what we can do topologically. And you can extend that to the simple instance of a layer 2 subnet for user purposes. But imagine, data center mobility between multiple data centers. We have a very large healthcare network that has 8 active data centers within the North American region. And those 8 active data centers are tied together through vast geographical distances with layer 2 connectivity so that they can do virtual machine mobility and migration of services between those data center points.
Wow.
Very few other technologies. Matter of fact, no other technology really can marry that, particularly in the wide area. You'd have to bring in multiple technologies to accomplish that goal, all of them depending on IP. So this becomes a major differentiation for us. And as you can see, we kind of break the rules of normal networking when you embody the fabric. So we've had a lot of hospitals that have incorporated this, military bases, federal government, customers, state and local governments, even down to K through 12 schools. And why would a K through 12 school implement the technology? Because you're thinking, well, security, maybe, a little bit, but certainly not like, a military base.
Right.
The reason why is because they don't have the IT staff. And because it's an Ethernet fabric, it's very easy to manage, and you can manage it with just a few people. Now, I'm going to take that and bring it up in scale. We have a Department of Transportation within a Western state with very large geographic area. 4 people manage that network.
Wow.
The whole state. Now, it's just not typical. Usually you'd have a staff of 12, maybe 15, maybe 20 people. 4 guys. They manage it, and they manage it quite well.
Right.
And this is the power of the fabric. So it has the benefit of the OpEx, and it has the benefit of the security posture improvement. What technologies really, when you think about it, offer you security posture improvement and OpEx benefits in the same dollar?
Interesting.
None. There are no other technologies out there that can do that. So that's one of the things I'm here to talk about today.
So what does this mean to the managed service provider or the small to medium business?
Well, when you look at it, it means a couple things. It means that, you could perhaps start to do things that you might have thought were out of reach in the past. Many people say that, they view the network as a cost center. I got to have it to run my business. And be that as it may, try to run a business without a network today. It's not possible. So, okay, we'll give you that. But how much does the network complement what you do? How much can it enable your business to do more? And what they find is with the fabric, they can start to look at things that they would have never thought to do in the past.
Wow.
Segmentation designs for security that they never would have thought of in the past. Now they're saying, wow, we can do that really easily with this fabric. That becomes a benefit. And that's a great thing. But the fact of the matter is that, I mentioned the or the OpEx and the security benefits, but the other thing is the CapEx benefits. These are nothing more than Ethernet switches. It's not like I'm selling you some big iron router to do everything that I'm talking about. These are small, stackable switches that cost just as much as any other switch in the industry. We don't really charge a lot of premium for the technology because it's embedded in the switch.
Interesting.
So that's the beauty of it. And many customers who have purchased Extreme switches have not run Fabric. Suddenly they decide they want to run Fabric. It's really just a simple software switch. And once they flip the switch, they have Fabric, and then they can start to deploy it with the same capital investment that they made prior.
Did you create a trademark patent for this technology?
There are no patents available in the technology. It's an IEEE standard. We have to relinquish all patents to that technology. There are a few that we do have that are old now. I mean, those go back to the turn of the millennium. But there are no royalty rights. There's no protective interests that we have. It's an industry standard protocol. So that's one of the beauty of it, is that it is an industry standard. The other benefit of an industry standard like IEEE, though, is you have backwards compatibility guaranteed, and you have grandfathering as well. So anything the IEEE does in the future, short of path bridging, will be part of that. And vice versa. You can take a network adapter that 3Com may have created back in the 1990s, and if you have the right physical interfaces, that NIC adapter will still work in today's networks. That's the beauty of Ethernet. That's the beauty of the standardization. So if you're looking for something to invest in and you want the investment protection, an IEEE standard is your best bet.
And nobody can mess with it. So, I mean, as a computer scientist and a hunter, do you approach things in a scientific or artful way?
Both.
Really?
Both. Never mistrust your instincts. That's number one.
That's art.
But always guide your instincts by the intellect. That's the thing. And I think there are, particularly in the realm of security, I think intuition is a very powerful thing.
Really?
I do. And I think it's almost as a matter of fact, maybe even more powerful than AI. And that's something that can never be removed, is the human equation. You know, the human who would just have a hunch.
Right.
And just to say, I've seen things like this before, I think. And AI may not pick that, but you may, because, and now AI can learn from you. You see, this is the thing. As much as we can learn from AI, AI can learn from us.
Yeah.
And it builds a resiliency into it. But that intuition, that gut feeling, that's something AI doesn't have. Humans do. And that's the thing. That's the thing. And the other thing is that, generative AI, you ask it to write a poem, it'll write a very eloquent poem.
Sure.
No doubt about it. I mean, I've played with the technology. You can actually ask it to write code for you. You can, but ask it to do something innovative, something that has no footprint prior. Very difficult.
Right.
You have to shepherd it. You have to walk AI through it. Now, AI will do that, but you have to walk it. This is the key. This is the human equation. My boss, Nabil Bukhari, likes to say that, is that, AI is not going to replace your job. It's going to enhance you. It will if you ignore it. This is what people have to realize. And it's the same thing with anything else. Don't fear new technologies. Don't fear, like, for instance, this fabric architecture. A lot of people are afraid of it because they don't understand it. Justifiably so. Anything that is different, you're going to look at, you're going to say, well, wait a minute, that's not used to anything I've done in the past. You have to get past that, particularly in technology. This is the thing I tell people. I mean, you're technologists. Why would you be afraid of something new? It's your job to understand something new, not to resist it. And this is what AI is. This is what the fabric is. This is what all these new technologies are. We have to embrace these evolutions. We can't be afraid of them.
What attracts me most to technology is that it changes all the time. What I hate about it is that it changes all the time. So but I love it though. I can't stay away from it.
There's an ancient Chinese saying, the only thing that does not change is change itself. And by the way, that's quote unquote from Lao She, who was, 2500 BC. So that's, some things don't change.
Has there been anything in recent history, in the last month, 2 months, that you've changed your mind on? Large or small, anything?
That I've changed my mind on? That's a tough question. Yeah, probably quite a few. But, in retrospect, I think that's part of life.
Yeah.
And I also think that's part of technical evolution. You have to realize that, just because I did something XYZ in the past, doesn't mean I should keep on doing it in the future, particularly if there's better, improved methods. Now, the thing is proving out those methods, and that's the important context that I tell everyone. That, if you're going to look at a new technology, have it proved in the context of where you want to use it. Okay. Have it proved out. And this is the important thing. And that's something that Extreme is very notable for, is that we will allow people to have hands-on use to it and actually take it, kick the tires, try to hack it, try to break it, try to do everything that you want to do. And and I think that's an important dimension of it, because if not, then people do remain afraid. And in defense of the individuals that are fearful, there was an old saying back when I was first in the industry, you never get fired for picking IBM.
Yeah, or Cisco.
You remember that? And then they went to, you never get fired for picking Cisco.
Right.
Well, that's not the case anymore.
Right.
You could pick the winners and still get fired. If you get hacked and you're compromised and your company goes on the block and you're found deficient in your job because of that, well, then it doesn't matter what you picked. So you have to get away from that mentality. And if you're going to pick the best technology for what you want to do, you really have to allow yourself two things. You have to allow yourself the deference of an open mind, in the fact that maybe there are things that I've done in the past that could be done better. Let me investigate this new fabric technology to find out how it works. And then number two, to actually put it into the fire, put it into a pilot, run it, get your staff to use it, red team against it. I mean, these are the things that I tell people to do, because that's at the end of the day something that will convince you. And then if you can turn around and go to your superiors and say, yes, we're selecting this technology, here are the reasons why, well, then it becomes very easy to get the capital investment.
So when I started my business in the 90s, I was working 14, 15-hour days. I'm sure you're no stranger to this. And not paying attention to myself and my diet, got myself up to 340 pounds. Doctor says to me, if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. My daughter was just born.
Wow.
Scared the life out of me.
I'd never guessed that. You're very trim now.
46-inch waist, 340. So I'm driving home, punching the steering wheel, and I said, this is my pie hole. I'm the one who did this. I'm going to get myself. Spent the next 6-7 months, lost about 130 pounds. And you can't look at it as a finishing line. You've got to stay with these routines.
That's right.
It's a change of life. So I tell a story, people want to quit. What's your secret? There's no secret, Ed. Discipline. That's how I lost the weight.
That's right.
Routine. I got, prioritization. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life.
It's very true. What you're saying is very, very true. It's discipline. Discipline is the key. And accountability is key. A lot of people, accountability is a bad word to a lot of people. I think accountability is key to a number of things. In professional, it's accountability to your organization, accountability to your superiors, accountability just to your general overall position. Personally, it's accountability to your loved ones, And then finally, when you get up in the morning, you got to look in that mirror, and you got a clean shaven face, and you shave every morning. I don't, but I do shave a little, I trim. So we all look in the mirror every morning, and there's accountability with ourselves. And people can go for years sometimes and never address that piece. So they're accountable to their loved ones. They're accountable to their job. They're accountable to everybody but to themselves. And I think you understand what I'm saying there.
I certainly do. And thanks so much for your time. Great pleasure speaking to you. If anybody listening, watching, how can they get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me at Extreme Networks. My email is ekoehler@extremenetworks.com. If you want to learn more about our fabric, I have YouTube channels. Just search on Ed Koehler, Koehler, and you will find two. You'll find an older channel, which is primarily from Avaya, and it's all fabric related. But then also the more recent one is Extreme Networks focused, and that's where you'll find my more recent videos. I do not recall the actual URLs, but if you search on my name, you'll find those two channels.
And sure, as LinkedIn, I'm sure, as well.
Absolutely available on LinkedIn as well. And by the way, anytime I post a YouTube video, it gets posted on LinkedIn.
And thanks so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Take care. Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypinz.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the
video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Disciplined Conversations.